I didn't scream. I didn't argue. I didn't even leave a note. I just packed my car and left. At exactly 7:52 a.m. on a rainy Tuesday, I carried the last of my bags out to the car. Quietly, methodically, like I was afraid even the walls might tell on me. My hands were shaking, not because I was scared, but because I couldn't believe I was actually doing it. No dramatic scene, no door slamming, no teary goodbye. Just a long exhale and 4 years of repressed exhaustion finally spilling out of my lungs. My name's Heather, I'm 24, and yes, I moved out of my parents' house without saying a single word to anyone. And no, not because I'm some angsty rebel who wanted to make a point. I left because I couldn't take it anymore. I come from a typical suburban family in Bucks County, Pennsylvania. My mom, Darla, is a master of passive aggression. The kind of woman who smiles through gritted teeth and manages to make every compliment sound like an insult. My dad, Alan, is a financial advisor who seems more emotionally connected to the stock market than to his own daughters. And then there's Chloe, my 20-year-old younger sister. Pre-med student, local saint, golden child, miracle baby. The one who could do no wrong. I was just the other one. The backup. The control group. I've lived under constant comparison since I was old enough to hold a report card. Chloe's B+ in algebra was a triumph. My A- in literature was kind of expected, right? She got a participation ribbon in a swim meet. Let's go out for dinner. I won a state writing award? That's nice, but don't you think writing is kind of subjective? It never stopped. When Chloe got into college on a full ride, Mom called every relative we had. When I got in with a partial scholarship, she said, "We'll see how long that lasts, honey." First, I thought I just needed to try harder. Be more agreeable. Keep the peace. Smile more. Lose weight. Study something more practical. For years I swallowed every insult with a forced grin and a quiet nod. But the truth is, no matter what I did, I was always too much or not enough. Too emotional. Too sensitive. Too quiet. Too opinionated. Too serious. Too dramatic. And Chloe? She was perfect. Even when she wasn't. If I forgot to unload the dishwasher, I was lazy. If Chloe left dirty dishes in the sink for 3 days, she's been studying so hard lately, poor thing. If I said I was tired from working a double shift at the bookstore, Mom would roll her eyes and say, "You don't know what tired is." If Chloe overslept and missed her class, Darla would literally go into her room with breakfast and a pep talk. The thing is, Chloe's not a bad person. She's actually sweet. But she's never had to fight for space at the table like I did. She never noticed how invisible I was becoming. And it wasn't just the comparisons. It was the constant control. Comments about my weight at dinner. Backhanded remarks about my clothes. Jabs about my single status. Endless pressure to act more normal. Then one night it broke. We were having dinner, grilled salmon, steamed vegetables, quinoa of course. Chloe was talking about a hospital internship. I was quiet, just chewing, nodding, trying not to breathe too loud. Then Mom looked right at me and said, "You know, Heather, you really should consider freezing your eggs soon. It's not like you have a man lined up." I choked. Literally choked. I coughed, laughed, blinked. Dad kept eating. Chloe looked down at her plate. No one said anything. That night, I stared at my bedroom ceiling for hours. I wasn't even angry. Just done. Done waiting to be seen. Done hoping they'd hear me. Done watching my life rot in the shadow of a girl who never even asked to be on the pedestal they built for her. So I planned. I got a second job at a coffee shop. Found a cheap room to rent in Pittsburgh through a friend of a friend. Spent 2 months sneaking boxes out to my trunk one at a time like a raccoon hiding treasure. No one noticed. They were too busy planning Chloe's graduation party. The morning I left, I wrote a text and deleted it. Wrote another one. Deleted that too. Finally, I just took a deep breath, started the engine and drove. I made it 2 towns over before my phone lit up. "Chloe. Hey, where are you? Mom's calling everyone." "Mom. What is going on?" "Heather, this isn't funny." "Dad. You need to call us now." "Mom again. How could you do this to us? After everything?" "Chloe. Are you okay? Seriously, please say something." I turned my phone off and drove 3 more hours. Pittsburgh was gray, rainy, and unfamiliar. But I've never felt more free in my life. When I finally responded 2 days later, I sent a single text. "I'm safe. I needed to leave. I won't be coming back." Mom replied within minutes. "Darla. You're being ridiculous. Honestly, this is just another one of your melodramatic stunts. When you're done sulking, we'll talk like adults. I blocked her number. I didn't speak to anyone for 6 months. And for the first time in my life, I could breathe. 6 months. That's how long I lived in Pittsburgh without a single phone call, email, or message exchanged between me and my family. Well, technically, I got a few texts from Chloe at the start. Little check-ins. A thinking of you here. I just wanted to say hi there. But I didn't answer. Not because I was angry at her. Truthfully, Chloe was the only one I didn't resent, but because I needed distance. Real distance. Not just miles, but space to feel like a person again. The house I moved into wasn't fancy. The floors creaked, the bathroom door jammed if you didn't yank it just right, and the heat made a noise like a dying animal every time it kicked in. But the room was mine. The walls were mine. The silence was mine. I didn't have to wake up to Darla yelling about laundry. I didn't have to justify why I wasn't eating breakfast. I didn't have to hear Chloe's latest accomplishments being announced like presidential victories. It was just me, my books, and a cat named Soup that belonged to my roommate Kelsey. A bartender with pink hair and a zero tolerance for bullshit rule taped to her bedroom door. Kelsey didn't ask questions when I moved in. She didn't care about my family or my history or why I paid rent a few days early every month. She just handed me a key and said, "Bathroom's down the hall. Don't leave dishes in the sink or I'll kill you." Fair enough. At first I was terrified of the quiet. I'd lie awake some nights waiting for someone to bang on my door. Waiting for Darla's voice echoing through the hallway like some ghost I hadn't shaken off. But it never came. And little by little I got used to the stillness. I started reading again. Writing again. Cooking dinner without commentary. Watching stupid movies and laughing until my sides hurt. Kelsey and I weren't best friends or anything, but she didn't judge me when I cried over my microwaved mac and cheese. She just poured me a whiskey and said, "Parents suck." One night I posted an anonymous story on Reddit. Just a simple post on r/off me chest. I talked about the comparisons, the eggs comment, the way I felt invisible even when I was screaming inside. I didn't name names. I didn't use any identifiers. But the comments section blew up. Hundreds of strangers told me, "I believe you. You did the right thing. That's not a family, that's a performance." And something in me cracked. In a good way. Maybe I wasn't crazy. Maybe I wasn't dramatic. Maybe walking away didn't make me selfish. Maybe it made me finally real. Then, in November, right around Thanksgiving, I got a letter in the mail. Yes, a letter. In handwriting I knew immediately. Chloe. I stared at it for 2 days before opening it. "Hey, I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I've been thinking about you a lot. Things at home are weird. Mom keeps saying you'll come to your senses. Dad pretends like nothing happened. I miss you. I miss talking to you. I wish I'd said more before. I wish I'd noticed more. I hope you're okay. I love you." See, it wasn't long. It wasn't dramatic. Just raw. And honest. And completely unexpected. I didn't reply. Not right away. I needed time. Then came the next surprise. An email from my Aunt Marla, who lived in New Jersey. She was Darla's younger sister and always the black sheep of the family. I hadn't seen her in years, but her email was short and to the point. "Hi Heather. I heard what happened. You don't owe anyone an explanation, but if you ever want to talk, I'm here. Also, we're doing a family dinner at my place for the holidays. You're invited. No pressure. No drama. Just food and a few people who don't suck." That last part made me laugh. I almost didn't go. The idea of walking into a room full of people who had ignored, minimized, or straight up criticized me for years made my skin crawl. But then I thought, what if I showed up not for them but for me? What if I didn't scream, didn't argue, didn't try to prove anything? What if I just told the truth? So I said yes. Chloe picked me up the night before. She drove all the way to Pittsburgh, and when I opened the door and saw her standing there in an oversized hoodie and a messy ponytail, I saw not the perfect daughter, but a tired, confused 20-year-old kid who just wanted her sister back. She didn't say anything at first. She just hugged me. Tight. "I missed you," she whispered. We didn't talk about the past that night. We ordered takeout, watched bad reality TV, and stayed up until 2 a.m. laughing like we used to before everything got weird. Before the pedestal, before the pressure, before Darla turned every dinner into a pageant. But the next day was the reckoning. Aunt Marla lived in a small house with a crooked fence and a dog named Tank that barked at literally everything. There were about 15 people there, extended relatives, second cousins, a few faces I barely remembered. And then my parents. Darla was in full performance mode. Hair curled, makeup flawless, voice high and sweet as saccharine poison. She looked at me like she expected me to fall into her arms and cry. I didn't. I nodded politely and sat across the room. Dinner was loud. Fake laughter. Awkward small talk. Chloe sat next to me the whole time. At one point Darla said something like, "We've missed our little drama queen, haven't we?" And some people chuckled. I just looked at her and said, "I'm not here to perform anymore." The room went silent. You could hear Tank snoring in the corner. And then I told them, calmly, without shouting, without tears. I talked about the comparisons, the constant judgment, the pressure to be something I wasn't, the way Chloe was held up while I was left to rot in the dark. I spoke for maybe 5 minutes. Just facts. Just truth. No blame, no theatrics. And when I was done, I stood up and said, "That's why I left. That's why I didn't say goodbye. And that's why I won't be coming back. Not to that version of this family." Aunt Marla gave me the smallest nod. A few others avoided my gaze. Darla? She looked like she'd swallowed glass. Dad just sat there, chewing his lip like it might turn into an answer. But Chloe? She stood up and said, "I'm leaving too." The room didn't explode. It cracked. The second Chloe said, "I'm leaving too." You could feel the air get sucked out of Aunt Marla's dining room like someone had opened a vacuum. Forks froze midair. A glass clinked a little too loudly. Darla, of course, was the first to speak. "What the hell are you talking about?" Her voice was sharp, low, almost hissing, like she was trying not to cause a scene but had absolutely no idea how to avoid it. She stared at Chloe like she'd been possessed. "I mean it," Chloe said. "I'm done. I'm tired of pretending everything's normal when it's not." "Sweetheart," Darla said with a pinched smile. One of those smiles that meant shut your mouth right now or I will make a scene you will not survive. "You're confused. This isn't about you." "It's always about you, Mom," Chloe said calmly. "That's kind of the problem." Alan finally looked up from his untouched plate, brow furrowed like he was just now catching up. "You're not seriously going with her. Chloe, be reasonable." Chloe didn't flinch. "I'm not a kid, Dad." For a second I wanted to stop her. Not because I didn't want her to come with me, but because I knew exactly what it felt like to walk out of that house and never look back. And that kind of break, clean and deep, carves through more than just family. Cuts you open. It makes you bleed in places you didn't know you had wounds. But I didn't say anything. Because I also knew she needed this. "You're throwing away your future," Darla snapped. "You have interviews lined up, you have a life here. What are you going to do? Move into that disgusting place Heather's living in? Play bohemian artist and barista with a cat named Soup?" I blinked. "How the hell do you know about Soup?" Chloe laughed, short and sharp. "She's been stalking your Instagram." "Oh my God." I rubbed my temples. "This woman is unwell." "I'm not stalking you," Darla barked. "I'm concerned. I've been worried. I'm your mother, Heather. You don't just leave your family like that. People thought you were in a crisis." "I was in a crisis," I said. "And none of you noticed." That silenced her. Marla cleared her throat. "Well, this has been lively." Bless Aunt Marla. Unbothered. Unapologetic. She picked up Tank and walked out of the room like she had just witnessed a particularly interesting theater performance and was now off to refill her wine. The others? Mostly silent. Uncomfortable. A few muttered something about the tension in the air and slipped out with coats barely buttoned. The silence that followed was thick and ugly, like the fog of years we'd all been choking on finally settled into the hardwood floor. Finally Chloe turned to me. "Ready?" I nodded. We left the table, walked past our parents and out the front door. Just like that. Darla didn't follow. Alan didn't move. No wait. No stop. Just the sound of our boots on the pavement and the creak of the screen door behind us. The ride back to Pittsburgh was quiet, but not in a bad way. Chloe kept her hands on the wheel like she was holding onto something solid. I watched the trees blur past and tried to catch my breath, even though I hadn't realized I'd been holding it since we walked out of Marla's. "You sure about this?" I asked. She glanced at me. "No, but I'm doing it anyway." We got to my place late. Kelsey had left the porch light on, and Soup greeted us like he owned the building. I offered Chloe the couch, but she insisted on sleeping in the tiny spare room we used mostly for laundry and lost things. She didn't even flinch at the weird water stain on the ceiling. The next morning we had coffee on the back steps in our pajamas. No makeup. No performance. No curated behavior. Chloe looked younger, like the pressure had finally started to melt off her bones. I always thought you were being dramatic, she said quietly. But now I think I just didn't want to see it. It's okay, I said. And I meant it. Because this wasn't about revenge or being right. This was about getting out before the rot reached the core. Over the next few days, Chloe made calls, canceled interviews, applied to different programs in Pittsburgh. She didn't move in with me. She found her own place nearby with other grad students, but we saw each other often. More than we ever did under the same roof. And for the first time in my life, I had a sister. A real one. As for Darla and Alan, there were a few attempts. A long email from Darla, laced with self-pity and subtle barbs. A voicemail from Alan, half-hearted and mumbled. Chloe got her share too, accusations of betrayal, emotional blackmail, the usual greatest hits from the Suburban Narcissists album. But we didn't answer. Because sometimes walking away isn't an act of cruelty. Sometimes it's the only thing keeping you alive. Living in Pittsburgh with Chloe nearby felt like we'd slipped into a parallel universe. One where conversations weren't weapons, where laughter didn't feel like a landmine waiting to go off. It was slow at first. We were still unlearning years of silence and side eyes. But we were getting there. Chloe settled into a shared apartment with 2 PhD students and a cat that hated everyone. She got a part-time research job at a clinic, started therapy through her university's mental health program, and dyed her hair this ridiculous copper red color that somehow suited her. She smiled more. She laughed without flinching. We didn't become codependent or fused at the hip, but we were there. For grocery runs, bad movie nights, study rants and work horror stories. For the kind of sisterhood we were never allowed to build before. And then the letter came. It was early February, gray and cold. One of those days where your breath hangs in the air and everything smells like ice and old salt on pavement. I checked the mailbox on autopilot, expecting coupons and junk. Instead, I found a single white envelope, hand-addressed in thin, neat cursive I didn't recognize. Return address: Grandma Ruth. My dad's mom. I hadn't heard from her in years. Ruth was always quiet at family events. The kind of woman who stood in the kitchen peeling potatoes while everyone else shouted over football. She never picked sides, never got involved. But there were moments, tiny ones, where she'd slip me a cookie when Darla wasn't looking. Ask about my books. Call me clever in this soft, secretive voice like she was afraid of being overheard. I sat on the couch, heart in my throat, and opened the envelope. Dear Heather, I don't know what happened exactly, but I heard enough. I'm not writing to guilt you. I'm writing because I think someone should say what I've never said out loud. You were always the one who saw things. The one who noticed the cracks. That's a lonely thing, and I should have told you that a long time ago. When your father was young, Darla was the loudest voice in the room. She still is. I tried to keep the peace by staying quiet, by letting things go. That's not the same as keeping people safe. I see you now. I saw you then. And I want you to know I'm proud of you. Love, Grandma Ruth. I didn't cry. I just sat there, letter in hand, staring at the snow starting to drift outside the window. For so long I thought I was crazy, overreacting, seeing ghosts. But that letter was a match to the cold place inside me, and for once it felt like something burned clean. I showed it to Chloe that night. She read it slowly, her lips pressed together like she didn't want to let the words hit her too hard. She always seemed. I don't know. Checked out, she said. Maybe she was surviving, I said. Maybe she still is. That same week, Chloe got another voicemail from Darla. Longer this time. Almost 10 minutes. Chloe played it for me, and we sat there listening to the roller coaster ride in stereo. Guilt. I just don't understand how you could do this to us. Manipulation. After all the sacrifices we made, this is how we're repaid? Pity. Your father isn't sleeping. I haven't eaten in days. Control. If you don't come home soon, there will be consequences. Chloe deleted it. And then she blocked Darla's number. We didn't talk about it after. Some things don't need to be processed out loud. March came fast. The snow melted into brown slush and the city started to feel alive again. I got promoted at the bookstore, small raise, more hours, but I didn't care. I finally had enough to get my own one-bedroom apartment. Chloe came to help me move, carrying boxes and stealing my snacks like it was her full-time job. That night, as we sat cross-legged on the floor eating pizza out of the box, Chloe said something I wasn't expecting. You ever feel like it's too good? I looked at her. What do you mean? Like waiting for the other shoe to drop. Like mom's gonna show up, or call your job, or fake a medical emergency to get us to crawl back. I didn't have to think long. Yeah, every day. She nodded. I hate that. I hate that they still live in our heads like that. Yeah, I said again. But they don't own the space anymore. That night I couldn't sleep. Not from fear. From clarity. It hit me all at once, sometime around 3 a.m. Lying in my new bed under a thrift store blanket and mismatched sheets. I hadn't thought about Darla in over a week. That used to be impossible. Her voice lived in my head like mold on drywall. Always there, even when you couldn't see it. But now? Silence. Real healthy silence. And then on cue, smoke. Not metaphorical. Literal. The fire alarm started blaring. I ran into the hallway barefoot, heart pounding, expecting flames. Turned out the idiot on the second floor had tried to deep fry something drunk at 3 a.m. Everyone spilled into the street in pajamas, laughing and shivering. Chloe, who had been staying over on the couch, was wrapped in a hoodie and holding soup under one arm like a furry hostage. You good? She asked. I nodded, breathing cold night air, heart still racing. Just smoke. Not fire, I said. She smiled. Kinda like our lives now. By April, things were different. Still hard. Still tangled. But real. We got a letter from Alan, typed, printed, signed. It was stiff and formal and said something about wanting to repair the dynamic. Neither of us replied. We didn't need closure. We didn't want to go back. We weren't angry anymore. Just done. And sometimes done is a beautiful place to be. Spring came early that year. Pittsburgh bloomed in this messy, stubborn way. Mud everywhere. Petals stuck to windshields. Kids in shorts when it was barely 60 degrees. It felt fitting. Like the world wasn't waiting for permission to move forward. It just did. By then, Chloe and I had rebuilt something real between us. Not perfect, not seamless, but solid. We called each other out, held each other accountable, and never pretended things were easier than they were. She still had bad days, nightmares, guilt spirals, sudden tears when someone said something that sounded a little too much like Darla. I had mine too. But we weren't stuck anymore. And then, in late May, we got the message. It came from our cousin Julia, the only daughter of our mom's older brother. She was sweet, blunt, and always just a little too honest for family gatherings. She hadn't picked sides after the fallout, but she hadn't pretended it didn't happen either. Hey, just wanted you two to know. There's going to be a family reconciliation dinner next weekend. Darla and Alan are calling it a fresh start. They asked me to invite you, since they figured you wouldn't respond if they reached out directly. No pressure. Just letting you know. Chloe and I read the message in silence, sitting side by side on my old futon, soup asleep between us like a furry Switzerland. I'm not going, she said immediately. I didn't think you would, I said. But me? I didn't know. Something about that word reconciliation itched at me. Not because I believed they meant it, but because I finally had the chance to say no out loud to their faces. Not by leaving. Not by going silent. But by standing in the same room and choosing myself. You're thinking about it, Chloe said, watching me. Yeah, I admitted. You don't have to. I know. That's why I might. The dinner was held at some overpriced restaurant outside of Doylestown. Darla's choice, obviously. Linen napkins, low lighting, polished cutlery that practically screamed we are a respectable family. I wore black. Not out of mourning. Just because it made me feel untouchable. When I walked in, the whole table turned. Alan looked older. Smaller. His posture was stiff, like he was afraid to breathe too loud. Darla looked exactly the same. Every hair in place, smile frozen on her lips like she'd practiced it in the car. Heather, she said, standing as if that would make it feel warm. I didn't hug her. Just nodded and sat at the far end of the table. They made small talk. Of course they did. About the weather. About renovations. About a neighbor's divorce. As if none of it had happened. As if I hadn't disappeared for half a year and taken their golden child with me. Finally I said, so, this is the reconciliation? Darla blinked, caught mid-sip of white wine. Well, yes. We just thought. Enough time has passed. We've all had space to think. Did you actually think? I asked. Or did you just hope I'd get tired of being angry? Alan cleared his throat. We don't want to rehash the past. Why not? I said, voice calm. You're the ones who invited me. Darla exhaled slowly, folding her hands like a politician in front of a press conference. Heather, I know things got Tense. We said things we shouldn't have. But we're still family. That has to count for something. No, it doesn't. She flinched like I'd slapped her. Excuse me. Family isn't a trump card, I said. It's not a get-out-of-jail-free pass. You don't get to treat people like they're broken and then demand loyalty because we share blood. I never, she started. Yes, you did, I said. You minimized me, compared me, humiliated me. You made me believe I was too much and not enough at the same time. Alan was silent. Of course he was. He'd built a career on saying nothing at all. Darla opened her mouth again, but I raised my hand. I'm not here to fight. I just wanted to see it for myself. That you're still the same. That you haven't done the work. That this dinner is just another performance. You don't know that, she said, voice rising. You never gave us the chance. I gave you 24 years, I said. This was never about one moment. It was about every moment. All the little ones you said didn't matter. That's what broke me. And you never even saw it. The table was silent. A couple in the corner glanced over, then quickly looked away. Finally I stood. I don't need an apology. I don't need a hug. I don't even need you to understand. I just needed to say this to your faces, so that when I leave this time it's not running away. It's walking away. By choice. On my terms. I paused. Oh, and one more thing, Chloe's not coming back either. So stop trying. And then I left. Chloe was waiting in the car. You went in. I nodded. She handed me a smoothie. Well, I'm good, I said, smiling. Really good. We didn't talk about it after that. We didn't need to. It's been a year since I left. I don't speak to Darla or Alan. Neither does Chloe. We've each carved out lives from the wreckage they left behind. It's not easy. Some nights the old voices still echo. Some days we still flinch when the phone rings. But we're healing. Together. And I've learned something I never thought I would. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do isn't surviving the storm. It's walking out of the house where it never stopped raining. So, yay for moving out without telling my family? No. I was just finally telling the truth with my silence, with my exit, with my life. And honestly, I'd do it again.